5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to New Realities. I am here once more with the ever knowledgeable, increasing awareness, Doc Wallach. Doc Wallach is a wealth of information about health, nutrition, vitality, along with Carolyn Clancy, who has some excellent questions. But Doc's going to lay out sort of the history of pandemics. And I think that's something we need to know right now as we seem to be emerging out of the current crisis. Would you say that's happening? We're coming out?
Well, there has to be a fourth wave, which we're going to talk about, which is coming up big time. Okay, so
yeah, go ahead. You're on.
Okay, well, I'm on. Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my background is a little bit different. I do have a degree in agriculture. My major is in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor is in field crops and soils. I have a degree in veterinary medicine. I have a postdoctoral fellowship in pathology, a $25 million grant from NIH. I was to find the canary in the mine, if you will, for pollution for human beings. And so I did autopsies for that $25 million over a 10-year period. I did autopsies of animals that died in the big zoos around the United States and big cities around the world, and also people who died who lived within a 10-mile radius of the zoos, figuring if the animals in the zoo died from pollution, kind of before humans did, kind of like the canaries in the mine for the coal miners principle. Right. If we could find a couple of species of animals that would give us an early warning, then we could evacuate the cities. And so that was the whole idea of that grant. So I did 20,000 autopsies in 10 years, 3,000 humans and 17,000 of change of over 454 species of animals. That thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. I'm very proud of that because I was able to find not only the canaries in the mine, but I also found that there were no genetically transmitted diseases. There are no genetically transmitted birth defects. They're all nutritional deficiency diseases. And so that's why it's in the Smithsonian Institute. And then I also have a degree in naturopathic medicine. I began to practice. I'm licensed in 1982 in Portland, Oregon. And I'm also licensed in California. I'm in the process of being licensed in several other states because we've got some big projects coming up. So that's what makes me different. I'm an animal doctor and a people doctor and a researcher all in the same guy. So to make a long story short, let's jump into the pandemics.
Yeah.
If you're a reader of the Bible, you know that people complained about the plagues coming through every once in a while. Plague is the old-timey word for pandemic. And we don't know exactly how many people died. We know that many died. There were 8 pandemics or 8 plagues set upon the Egyptians for enslaving the Hebrews for 400 years, right? And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And was it 10 years?
It was 10 plagues because we just had Passover and we count out each plague.
Okay, 10 plagues. Well, there you go. After the 10th one, Pharaoh said, it's time, we better let those Hebrews go. And so Moses, let my people go thing came true. Okay, well, there we go. Right. So, anyway, then we have a whole bunch of Chinese, let's see here, mummies. We have a whole bunch of Chinese mummies that are carbon dated back to 3,000 years ago. And they died of smallpox. We know that because when you unwrap the mummies and they carbon date them to 3,000 years ago, they have these smallpox pustules all over their face and arms and body and stuff. So we know they died of smallpox 3,000 years ago. We're going to jump forward to 1797 in England. There was a country doctor by the name of Edward Jenner who noticed that the milkmaids who milked the cows never died from smallpox. All the other people in the village, the farmers, would die from smallpox, but the milkmaids never died of smallpox. And he reasons there was something on those cowpox on their hands. And so he took a milkmaid by the name of Sarah. I actually found out her name. It was Sarah. He took some pus from these little pustules on her hands, took this 9-year-old son from his gardener, scratched the kid's shoulders, and put the pus into those scratches. And then a month later, challenged that 9-year-old kid with pus and mucus from 3 people who had died of the smallpox. And he survived. He didn't get it. And so that was the beginning.
Was that the first vaccine? Was that the very first vaccine?
That was the very first vaccine. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now they did varialization before that, where they'd have big parties and they'd have somebody who died of smallpox. They'd get a whole bunch of people in there in the room, and they would walk by and they'd wave over the body and towards the people walking past them and stuff, trying to get protected. It didn't help them much, but it was called varialization. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go to, let's see here.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question about the Hebrews? Because the reason the plagues did not affect the Hebrews is that they had the blood of the lamb on their door, which I think was a vaccine. Does that make sense?
Well, what should I say? It could be considered to be that. Okay. Somehow it was a protection.
Right.
It had God's stuff in it. Okay. So however they did that.
There could have been some, immune essence in the lamb of the blood as well. I'm just hypothesizing.
But if you're 30 feet away, it's got to be more than that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's keep going with what happened with pandemics.
Okay. Now we go from, let's see here. We go from 1797. Let's jump up to 19. Let's see here, 1918 to 1919. Yeah, and the Spanish flu. Do you know why they call it the Spanish flu? Okay,
it had nothing to do with Spain, did it?
Well, indirectly it did, but it didn't. Okay, during the First World War, Spain was a neutral country, didn't participate in the war. All the other countries, whether it was from Europe, Germany on one side, and North America and the other European countries on the other side, when they had people who died from this flu or this pandemic, they didn't want anybody to know about it. They didn't want their enemies to know how many were sick and dying. And so they said nothing. So the Spanish, they had all the newspaper articles, and they called it the Spanish flu because the Spanish were the only ones talking about it. In India, they had the worst time, so they called it also the Bombay influenza or the Bombay fever. It was also called the Spanish flu. And the United States.
Can I just ask you a question? Is there a difference between influenza and what this COVID thing is? Is there a difference between that?
No, it's just terminology.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so let me get to the numbers here.
Yeah.
So anyway, so after 1918, 1919, India was hit the hardest because the English were there for a couple hundred years already, okay, bringing in wheat by the rhinos, and they were giving them gluten. So the intestines of the northern 9 states of India were dead, and they were the ones that got hit the hardest. In India, they lost 20 million dead in 6 months during the Spanish flu. They got 110 million infections during the Spanish flu. Okay, we lost 657,000 dead during the Spanish flu in America. And we had 195,000 die in 1 month in October of 1918. Okay, that was the worst month. Those are deaths.
Right.
That was the Spanish flu, the Bombay fever, whatever you want to call it, 1918 to 1919. Then came 1952, we had polio. Okay, 3,000 American kids died from that until the vaccination came along. And it was a kid's disease. It really didn't affect older people, okay, but it killed younger people. 3,000 kids died in America, 1952. Then 1957 to 1958, we had the Asian flu. Okay, we had 116,000 people die in the USA from the Asian flu. And then in, let's see here, we're going to go to 2000, is that right? No. Yeah, 2003 and 2005, we had H1N1, we had SARS, we had Corona 2, we had MERS, and we had, I don't know if this is true, but that's the only figures I could find, was 774 dead in 2003 and 1,868 dead in 2005. A lot more infections, but those were the dead. Okay, that was 2003, 2005. I actually have a CD and a book called Hell's Kitchen. The CD came out in 2003 and the book came out in 2005 and explained why we have the pandemics. And I'll get to that in a minute, why we have the pandemics. So at any rate, then came 2005, 2012, 7-year period, HIV, AKA AIDS, 700,000 died in that 7-year period. So about 100,000 a year died from AIDS and HIV. Okay. And then we have what's going on now. The swine flu came in 2009. We had 18,710 die there. And it was called the swine flu because it was detected in swine also. And now we have the COVID.
But why is this one so much worse than all those others in recent history?
Well, that's the ultimate question. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Great. You're a clever guy. Okay.
I'll try to be. Yeah.
So, so we have 31 million 563,848 infections from the COVID-19. We have 570,294 dead from COVID-19, and not even a 1.5 year period. Okay, it's almost like we're going to beat the deaths. Okay, in India from the Asian flu. We're going to beat that. It's not even half the year is not even over yet. And so, at any rate, we have a problem here. And so the problem is, and I'll give you a clue here. Let me give you the clue. The subtitle of the book, Hell's Kitchen and CD, is Causes, Prevention, and Cure of Obesity, Diabetes, and the Metabolic Syndrome. The first several chapters of the book go into this. At 3:00 in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street in New York City, on the bluff overlooking construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, Thomas Edison and Jonathan Leeds pulled the switch in the first commercial electric generating plant. Within 10 years, everybody in the industrialized world had converted from wood stoves and fireplaces and fire pits to electricity. Now, they gave up the most important thing in their diet, which was wood ashes, which was their source of minerals for thousands of years.
Right. That was a huge shift in the consciousness and diet of America, of the planet.
Of the world. Yes.
Of the world. Yes.
Of the world, because the industrialized world went to electricity also, right? Not just the US.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So that was a big thing. And so we developed all these diseases within a couple of years. And that was the time, about 1900, 20 years before the First World War. This was the darling time of genetics. And so doctors blamed all these unknown new diseases, which are really just nutritional deficiencies, type 2 diabetes, kidney failure, high blood pressure, thyroid problems. Lupus, all those kind of things. They said your body's attacking itself. You have bad genes, all this kind of stuff. They didn't realize it was just simple nutritional deficiency diseases. The metabolic syndrome includes high blood pressure and heart disease and all those kind of things. And of course, obesity is one of the biggest pre-existing conditions that contribute to early death if you get the COVID-19 virus infections. When you look at obesity is one of the biggest ones. What else did they have? Well, obesity was 80% of them. Okay. Obesity is caused by a deficiency of a certain class of nutrients. And this class of nutrient deficiency causes a behavior called pica, P-I-C-A, which is you just can't stop eating. Even if you had a 5,000 calorie breakfast, you're going to keep eating all day. You're going to gain weight. And people would go to their doctor and say, I don't know why, but I'm gaining so much weight. I just can't stop eating. The doctor said, you're eating too much animal fat. Stop eating animal fat and eat more whole grains. So between getting rid of the wood ashes, eating whole grains, and getting health insurance, those three things together has killed more people in all the wars in the world put together.
It's not just whole grains. It's what they do to grains after they make breads. And tell me what? Why are you shaking your head?
No, I have a degree in agriculture. Listen, Alan, okay? Wheat, brown rye, and oats has gluten in it. There's a substance in gluten, which is produced by the gluten, called pro-inflammatory cytokines. It destroys the villi in your intestines. Now, I don't know if you remember, but a year ago when Fauci came out and said, look, this is a nothing virus. I have the tapes from him on TV, on news conferences saying this is a nothing virus. Just wash your hands, wear a mask and distance. In a couple of weeks, this is all going to be over. We'll have the vaccine. Don't worry about it.
Right.
No big deal. Well, what did we get for listening to him? Let's see here. We have what is it? 800.
The one piece I like to add, and I agree with you, when the villi cannot absorb nutrients, the body must take minerals from other places, the bones, the hair, the teeth, all that. Isn't that part of that whole process?
Well, that's part of it. We're going to get to that. I know you want to get to that, but don't have a premature birth here.
Okay, thank you.
And so at any rate, those three things together, okay, giving up the wood ashes as a source of minerals, excuse me. And people would say, shouldn't I be taking some vitamins and minerals now that I'm using wood and I'm not using wood ashes anymore? Nah, just eat well, you get everything you need. Well, that would be like a mechanic telling you, Alan, don't waste your money on oil. It's so expensive right now. Do not waste your money on oil. But I love my car. I want to go 300,000 miles. Don't waste your money on oil. Just put dirt from Texas or Oklahoma or Saudi Arabia in your car. There's bound to be some oil in it. A crazy person would run away screaming. They would not do that. And they'd tell everybody what a nut that mechanic was. But when a doctor says, oh, just eat well, you get everything you need, people beat their chest. My doctor says I can get everything I need just by eating well. Well, that doctor should be put in jail as a mass murderer when he says stuff like that. Okay, that is not true. Okay, then you have to appreciate when you cannot absorb nutrition because your villi are dead, because you've been eating gluten, they're releasing the pro-inflammatory cytokines, kill those villi. Instead of your intestines looking like a shag rug on the inside, now they look like a plastic tube. You've lost 98% of your absorptive surface. Even if you're supplementing, you're not going to do very well. And I said this over a year ago, that people are going to have a highly variable response to the vaccine depending on their diet and supplements program. You may remember me saying this over and over and over again. Well, I was right. I'll tell you a little bit more in a second. But at any rate, it's very, very scary because now your bone marrow is your immune system, and it requires these nutrients to make white blood cells, antibodies, red blood cells, and platelets. And again, Alan, you know of people, whether it's in your business, your family, your neighbors, your church, whatever, your temple, you know that people are in trouble when it comes to their health. Now, why are they in trouble? Because they're not getting any nutrition to their bone marrow. And they cannot make white blood cells and red blood cells and platelets and antibodies. And so they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, look, you're anemic here. You're getting hemorrhaging under your skin. I'm going to give you a prescription for some iron and B12. Take that. Well, it goes for 3 months, 6 months. It's getting worse. Okay, you got to come in every month now. I'll give you a shot of B12 and iron. Well, I don't like that. You got something else? Well, yeah, I could give you a transfusion once every month or so. Well, let's try that. So, well, I'm sick for 10 days after the transfusion. You got anything else? Well, yeah, we got the bone marrow transplant, but it's $100,000. If you got good insurance, it'll pay for it. When really all they need to do is get off of gluten and take the 90 essential nutrients, and they'd get all the nutrition to their bone marrow, and they wouldn't get sick. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. That is why you wrote that book about doctors. Dead doctors don't lie. Yes.
Okay, now the CD in 9 languages, we've sold 600 million copies of the CD in 9 languages.
Right.
600 million copies. You think about that. Okay. Now,
is it because doctors refuse to look at the nutritional component? I mean, what is
okay, well, here's the problem.
Yes, tell me.
Doctors only manage the symptoms. They do not want a cure. They turn the patient into a milk cow. Every time they need money, come on in. We got some new stuff I want to talk to you about. Oh, we got to run this test. Oh, we got to run that test. We're going to try this new drug on you, all this kind of stuff. And so what happens here is the doctor doesn't feel guilty about doing that because insurance is paying for it. He's not hurting the patient any because insurance is paying for it. But instead of getting rid of the disease in 90 days, he milks them for 40 years. And here's the question that every patient should ask their doctor when they start saying, hey, come in, I got a new thing I want to try on you. What you want to do is say, okay, doc, before I come in, I need to know something. How many kids of yours are in college right now? And is tuition due at this point? Okay, I'm going to get a second opinion from a veterinarian.
Right. You're right.
Okay. And so all this will stop them. But as long as people keep participating in this little empire that doctors have created, we're in trouble. Okay, in any other industry, if they would be doing to their customers what doctors do to patients, they'd all be in jail.
Get it. I get I mean, there, how do we turn that all around?
Do it yourself. That's why I came up. I have 15 best-selling books. I have 110 best-selling CDs. I have 50 best-selling CDs. We have a new CD. It's called Red Warning Lights. It goes into the 8, 10, 12 different pre-existing conditions that set you up. The metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney failure, all that kind of stuff.
I just want to do a little commercial. If people want to find out more about what Doc has formulated, call 888-275-7755. That's Vitality Health News. You'll find out about all the formulations Doc has put together. Okay, continue, please. Yes.
Okay. And so you need to eat like an Asian. Eat maize, corn, rice, sweet potatoes, beans, squash, and seaweed. So here's what I tell people that have all these health problems. Okay. We're talking about obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney failure, lupus, all these kind of things. None of them are autoimmune. None of them are genetic. Get over it.
You don't believe there's anything like autoimmune illness, right?
No, there are none. Now,
and there's no genetically transmitted diseases as well. That's what you're saying.
That's correct. And there's no genetically transmitted birth defects. Now you can get a birth defect from getting a virus early in pregnancy. You get a birth defect by getting some poison like lead or arsenic or stuff like that early in pregnancy. All other birth defects are caused by simple nutritional deficiencies. Okay, they're all preventable.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm listening. Yes.
Okay, we proved it in every species of animals you can name. Okay, we've proven it over and over and over. I even take people who call me, Lauren Knievel from Evel Knievel. She's Evel Knievel's niece-in-law. She called me. She says, "Hey, I'm 2.5 months pregnant, but with a 3-screen test and also an ultrasound, they've diagnosed my embryo as having really a severe case of Down syndrome. And everybody's screaming at me to get an abortion quickly because of my state. You got to get it done before the end of the 3rd month. And I've only got 2 weeks to make a decision. What can you do?" I said, "Well, I don't know. We can try. I've never been asked to do that, but I'll overnight you something." I sent her what would be called our Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, our big hammer in the toolbox. I said, "Just take this twice a day for the rest of your pregnancy, and let's see what we can do." Well, the baby is born perfectly normal. His name is Noah Knievel, and I actually have pictures she sent to me. He's 22 years old now, I think. He's just graduating school, getting a degree in engineering. She sent me pictures of him in his military uniform because he's in the Army Reserves. Beautiful, handsome young man. Obviously not a Down syndrome kid. And I have Ben and Wendy. I think it's Erdman is their last name. These are 2 kids. They're like 8, 10 years old. They both had Down syndrome. They lived like 30 miles apart, but their family went to the same church. And these kids grew up together and they got married. And he went to school and got an engineering degree. And he just retired a couple of weeks ago after 30 years of teaching.
You're saying the nutrition turned around the Down syndrome. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah. And he taught engineering in the engineering school at Texas A&M for 30 years.
Amazing. Okay. But let me ask you, do you believe in the vaccine? Do you think that can help protect people?
Okay. Now, I was going to get to that. Remember, I told you earlier I was going to get to that. Okay. So probably now's a good time to get to it. But I do want to say one more thing before I get to that. Okay. Yeah, we got plenty of time. So I want to spend 5 more minutes before we get to the vaccine thing, if I may. And I started to go there, but we got deflected. I want to prove to you that everything about this COVID-19 is a nutritional deficiency and has nothing to do with race or genetics. Okay. Let's look at what got people set off on the genetics thing or racial thing. When this is from the CDC, this came out a couple, about, I don't know, 6 months ago. They looked at per 100,000 infections in these groups, death rate. This is per month, per 100,000 infections. And the indigenous people, we're talking about Native Americans and people up, the Eskimos and so forth. It was 210 would die per 100,000 infections. In the Black community in the United States, per month, per 100,000 infections, 155 would die. And the Pacific Islanders, we're talking about Hawaii and also some of the islanders up around Alaska. 150 would die per 100,000. Whites is 120 per 100,000. Latinos are 120 per 100,000. And Asians are only 75 per 100,000. Okay. Now, let's go a little farther here. And let's look at the top 8. Let's just look at the top 8 states in the United States when it comes to the numbers of infections and deaths from COVID. California is number 1, has 39% Hispanics and 8% Black. Texas has 39% Hispanics and 14% Black. Florida has 25% Hispanics and 18% Black. New York has 19%, 19% Hispanics, Black. Illinois has 17% Hispanics and 16% Black. Georgia has 9.5% Hispanics and 34% Black. They have the highest rate of Black population. Ohio has 3.8% Hispanic and 14% Black, and Pennsylvania has 7% Hispanic and 13% Black. These are the top 8 states when it comes to numbers of infections and deaths from the pandemic. Now, this has nothing to do with race, even though that's what they're sort of indicating here. It has to do everything with what they eat. Okay, let's look at Nigeria and Brazil. Okay, can I do that? Look at Nigeria and Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay. They both have,
because I think that's actually, no, you just made an important point that has nothing to do with race or nationality. It has to do with the cultural lifestyle and the diet. Yeah, exactly.
That's correct. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 proofs. Proof number 1, Nigeria and Brazil. Both of them have about 208 million people. Nigeria is 98% from the World Health Organization. Nigeria is 98% tribal Black indigenous peoples. Brazil is 47% white Europeans, 47% mulatto, mixed racial Black and white, and 9% Black. Nigeria has 2,000 dead. Brazil has 330,000 dead. Nigeria has 163,000 infections. Brazil has 13 million infections. What's the difference? Well, Nigeria lives on the west coast of Africa, and they eat like Asians. They live on maize, corn, rice, sweet potatoes, beans, squash, and seaweed.
Non-gluten, you're saying these are all non-gluten?
Non-gluten foods. They're all non-gluten foods. Whereas the Brazilians, everything they eat is wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Everything they drink is wheat, barley, rye, and oats, because everybody who migrated there were Europeans that ate wheat, barley, rye, and oats and drank wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Okay, now let me give you a couple of more. Let's look at Mexico and Japan, a classic Asian country and a classic Latino country. Japan and Mexico both have about 127 million people. Japan has 9,000 dead. Mexico has 204,000 dead. Japan has 484,000 infections, and Mexico has 2.2 million infections. Mexico, the classic Latino country, all they eat is wheat, barley, rye, and oats, and drink wheat, barley, rye, and oats, and everything Japan eats is maize, corn, rice, sweet potatoes, beans, squash, and seaweed. Let me just have you look. This is my favorite one, is the Ojibwe Indians and the Navajo Indians. Both of them have about the same population. Their main reservation is about 350,000 people in their main reservation. Navajos in Arizona and Ojibways in Minnesota. Okay. Now, the Ojibways have 0 dead and 27 infections. The Navajos have 1,200 dead and 30,000 infections. So what's the difference between the Navajos and the Ojibways? They're both indigenous peoples. Well, the Navajos are they were introduced to wheat, barley, rye, and oats in 1865 by the Scottish, who invaded their territory and bought their way in by teaching them how to plant wheat, barley, rye, and oats so they'd have a predictable source of food and didn't have to fight them to move in. And the Ojibways, for 400 years, have been eating the wild rice and the algae from the Great Lakes. For 400 years, all they've been eating is wild rice, algae, and game.
That's amazing. Those are great statistics. I mean, I think you've proven your case, really, because it's based on the evidence that gluten creates a lowering of the immune system, basically, right? And
because you cannot absorb the nutrition. You cannot absorb the nutrition which your immune system needs to make antibodies and white blood cells.
Right.
Okay. And
So
so
the
here comes the failure of the vaccine.
right. Okay.
The vaccine does not kill viruses, bacteria, fungus, or yeast. It just alerts the body to bad DNA and RNA. So when the bug hits you, your body says, there's the bad DNA and RNA. So it should send your white blood cells, your T lymphocytes, and so on, and your antibodies, your red blood cells, your platelets to go kill and eat the viruses. Okay. But if you can't absorb nutrition, you can't get nutrition in your bone marrow dies. You get what's called bone marrow dysplasia. Have you ever heard of bone marrow dysplasia? Yeah, your bone marrow is nothing but scar tissue and fat. There's no stem cells in there anymore because it hasn't had nutrition in 30 years because you've been eating gluten for 30 years.
Didn't know that. I didn't know there was so you, and we'll get to how to rebuild the bone marrow. We're going to get there,
Yes.
but go ahead, keep going.
Okay. And so I said this a year ago, actually almost a year and a half ago now, that people are going to have a variable result to the vaccine because of what they eat. Now, let's look at Michigan right now, and all these spiking in North America. State of Michigan is the worst. They have like 9,000 new cases a day. Okay. And even New York only has 4,000, and California only has 1,200, and Michigan has 9,000. Okay. And so they vaccinated probably a bigger percentage than any other state in the United States. And they said they've so far, as was of yesterday, the CDC came out, that was on Fox News, 247 people after they had the vaccination, the two vaccination version of it. Their last vaccination was like a month or 2 months ago. And 247 got the disease, active disease, and 3 died so far. And we'll see what happens today.
After the vaccination, they got they actually came down with that.
They actually have an active infection. That was in the news yesterday. They have 247 active infections and 3 of which died. So we'll see. And of course, again, Michigan's running 7,000 to 9,000 new cases a day. Okay, compared to like California only has 1,200 new cases.
No,
so you have to eat like an Asian.
Why did the cases go down in California? Because they and why is it up in Michigan?
Okay, well, in California, I live in California, and I lecture here. I'm on TV, I'm on the radio, put on meetings, do Zooms. I've been lecturing here for 50 years and telling people to get off of gluten for 50 years. This isn't new. You go back.
Maybe you've had an effect on the population. I think that's what you're. Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen, right?
What is Hell's Kitchen? The kitchen that people use, right?
Yeah. Well, see, the CD came out in 2003. Okay, when SARS and MERS and H1N1 was coming along.
Right.
And then when COVID-2 came along, then we threw in the book, and we call it Hell's Kitchen because we gave up the wood ashes and went to electricity. Okay, so all this history going back to 1882 is in the CD in the book. Everybody needs to get this CD and book, give it to their kids, give it to their parents, give it to their loved ones, give it to their pastors, give it to the rabbis, give it to everybody. And of course, I work with so many pastors, Andy Young, Martin Luther King III Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. The third, Coretta Scott King. Let's see here, Pastor Creflo Dollar from Atlanta, Georgia, Pastor Mike Freeman from Baltimore, Maryland, and so forth. Benny Hinn, okay, who's moved to Texas. He was in Minnesota, but he moved to Texas. I'm working with these pastors for 30, 40, 50 years. Okay. Right. And I lecture, and Pastor Creflo Dollar, he actually made my first recording when I lectured to his church, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And we came up with, and he says, now, Wallach, I saved his daughter who's dying from a, quote, autoimmune disease, unquote. She was 12 years old and was to die in 2 weeks. I cured her in 2 weeks. And so that's when he had me lecture in his church. And he recorded it, and that was Dead Doctors Don't Lie. But he said, tell me, Wallach, what about all these other genetic and autoimmune diseases in Black people? Are they genetic or are they autoimmune? No, sir. And so he said, put all this in a book. So and he bought the first 10,000 copies of the book Black Gene Lies.
Wow.
And the book and the CD Black Gene Lies. And we sell thousands of those every month.
No, I think it's great. I want to get to Carol and Casey before we run out of time,
Okay.
because I know because she always has some really great questions
Okay.
from real people. But did you finish the? I mean, that was really great overview, I have to say. I just want to also show people if they want to get
Eat like an
anything.
Asian. Eat like an Asian.
And you can
Okay.
find out more if you call Vitality Health News, 888-275-7755. Okay, now I want to bring in one of the people who've been working with the Youngevity. There's Health Kitchen. Carolyn Clancy is a practitioner in a sense. She Black Gene Lies. There is no genetically transmitted diseases, no matter what race.
That's correct.
This is Doc's 40, 70, 60 years of research, right?
60.
60. Okay, Carolyn, jump in with some great questions, because I know that you are just wanting, always have some great things to talk about.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, Doc, this gentleman is 87, 145 pounds, called me the other day with dizziness, neuropathy, AFib, gastroparesis, anxiety, and telling me about a magnesium problem.
Okay, this guy's 87 years old?
Yes.
Okay, he's got osteoporosis of the skull. He's got a squeezing of the 8th cranial nerve. He probably has ringing in his ears also, tinnitus, squeezing the 8th cranial nerve. He's got AFib, which is a squeezing of the 10th cranial nerve. Okay, and this also causes the gastroparesis, which doctors oftentimes misdiagnose as gastric ulcers. Okay, and so AFib is a peripheral neuropathy. Okay, the neuropathy, of course, has to do with squeezing of his spinal cord as it's coming out of the back of his skull, because there's 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And I want him to get, we also have a new book that goes into, because I looked for it and there's nothing in any of the medical literature about osteoporosis of the skull. So we came up with a book called It's All in Your Head, goes into the 25 different diseases you get from osteoporosis of the skull. There's 25 major diseases. And here's a case where doctors will send you to their golf buddy who's a neurologist or an ear, nose, and throat person or an eye person or a dentist, okay, because he wants to have his golf partner do okay financially, but he never tells the patient, hey, if you take Wallach stuff, you get rid of all these things, are just simple osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing all your cranial nerves and your spinal cord. And so we came out with a book. It's the first thing ever published on osteoporosis of the skull. So here's what he needs to do. At 145 pounds and his age, I want him to get rid of all the bad foods. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, brown rice, no sugar. I want him to take 2 healthy brain and heart. At 87, he's got to hit this hard. I want him to take 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, a full dose of breakfast, full dose of dinner time. I want him also to take 3 of our MSM tablets 3 times a day. That's 2 bottles a month to help rebuild bone, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae, bone makes your bone itself. I also want him to get 3 vitamin D3 capsules 3 times a day. That's 3 bottles a month. I want him to take our glucogel. He could take 5 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. And I want him to take the Pro Joint FX. Take 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. And lastly, I want him to take the, let's see here. I want him to take the Fucoid Z capsules. He could take 3 of those twice a day if he prefers liquids. He could take an ounce of the liquid Z Radical, which is the same thing. It's a seaweed and algae that contain all these weird trace minerals that your bone marrow likes. Okay,
and his age, that at this number, Vital Health News, 888-275-7755. Go ahead, Doc. I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay.
That's all right. Okay. Yeah, I want him to get that book. It's All in Your Head. Okay. Mm-hmm. But at his age, 87, with all these pre-existing conditions, if he gets the COVID thing, he's not going to make it. He's, at that age where pre-existing conditions are all nutritional deficiencies. His bone marrow is dead, and we got to rebuild the bone marrow. We got to rebuild the skull, and all these things go away. I've worked with people who were 100 years old, and in 90 days, all these things go away. But they got to be aggressive and eating like an Asian and taking the supplements.
And he self-diagnosed himself with a magnesium problem, saying every time he took anything with magnesium, there was basically, I guess, digestive issues. What can we say about that?
Does that make sense, Doc? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, okay, it could. I'm sure his doctor's been telling him, hey, don't use any salt because you're going to get high blood pressure. So he needs to take our pink Himalayan salt and use about a half a teaspoon at breakfast and half a teaspoon at dinner time. I do that on my rice, my wild rice for breakfast, my sweet potatoes and wild rice for dinner time. I use the pink Himalayan salt for breakfast. I use the pink Himalayan salt with ground black pepper in it at dinner time for a little spicy setup there. It has 85 minerals in it. And the pH in his stomach is not correct. He's probably consciously avoiding salt at his age, listening to doctors. And of course, doctors have probably been milking his insurance policy for 25 to 50 years. And they're going to hate to see this guy go because he's been a good patient.
Exactly. The next one is a young lady who's 26, weighs 230, many health issues, night terrors, anxiety, depression, metabolism issues, and she has been an alcoholic off and on.
Okay, we don't have a weight. 230 pounds. Okay,
yeah,
230 pounds. There we go.
Yeah, 26.
26 years old. Okay. Yeah. Do we know how tall she is?
I think she's 5'6".
5'6". Okay, well, 5'6" for a lady, I'd like to see her weigh 140 to 150 pounds. So she needs to lose 80 pounds or so. I want her to have one meal a day, our keto meal. It could be a bar or a shake. Doesn't have to be the same meal every day. It could be rotated around depending on her schedule. The bar, you just peel, the ramp off and eat it. It takes a little bit of time to put together the shake. I want her to have 2 of the Healthy Brain and Heart packs per month, a full dose of everything twice a day. I want her to take our de-stress capsules, take 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. I want her to take our Ultimate Niacin Plus, one of those twice a day. That's 1 bottle a month. I want her to take the Synaptive, take 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. It gives the brain what it needs to make the biochemistry so the brain cells can talk to each other. And then I want her to eat 3 eggs twice a day with soft yolks. Hard-boiled eggs won't count. Fried eggs will cause cancer. So it can be soft scrambled in butter, soft poached, soft boiled. I have 3 for breakfast and 3 for dinner time with my steak or my lamb chops or my fish or whatever. But I have eggs twice a day with soft yolks. Okay. And then I also want her to have, let's see, I think I said the MSM. She needs the MSM. No. Okay. I want her to have 3 of those with each meal. So it'll be 9 a day. That's 2 bottles a month of the MSM. And that's to help her rebuild her skull. She may have osteoporosis of the skull. Even only 26 years of age. I've seen newborn babies with osteoporosis of the skull. It's not an age thing. It's if the mother's deficient during pregnancy, the baby can be born with osteoporosis of the skull. Okay. It used to be called Erb's palsy when babies are born that way. Erb's palsy. Okay. Now it's called Wallach's palsy because it's a nutritional deficiency, not a genetic thing or autoimmune thing. But at any rate, let's start there. And I also want her to have the Fucoid Z, take 3 of those twice a day. And if she prefers the liquid, a Z radical, she can take an ounce of that twice a day. It's all the same stuff. It's all these weird algae and seaweed from the ocean so that she gets all these weird trace minerals that's going to help her immune system. Mm-hmm. And start out with 1 meal a day, a keto meal.
Hey, Doc, I just have a quick question from someone online. They said, what about the nano threats, the microscopic nano threats to our body from all this plastic that's everywhere? What can we do about that?
Okay. Well, here's what I want you to do. Get our Icelandic water. That's how I make all my liquid drinks in our Icelandic water. We're going to have a lot of new minerals from there because they just had another eruption from a volcano that hasn't erupted in 600 years. That's a good thing. But also, you need to use our colloidal silver. 2 droppers full under the tongue, 30 minutes for each meal and 30 minutes for bedtime. I want them to use our hand sanitizer. And we have what we call Herbal Rainforest, which is our detoxifying product. It has 13 cleansing herbs from the Amazon River and 75 minerals in it. You can start out with taking an ounce at breakfast or a half ounce at breakfast and dinner time. And it should not give you diarrhea if you weigh more than 100 pounds. But if it does, cut it to a half ounce once a day. But don't start out with an ounce twice a day, because it could give you diarrhea, because of those 13 classic cleansing herbs from the Amazon Valley. They are organic. I take a half ounce twice a day. I weigh 142 pounds a day. Tastes great. Even little kids like it. And for people who have, like celiac disease and irritable bowel syndrome and all that kind of stuff, they need to use this also to help them recover more quickly, as well as getting off of gluten. The Herbal Rainforest.
What was the Herbal Rainforest? Will that also help pull the plastic, the micro?
Yes, pull.
Okay.
It detoxifies. These 13 detoxifying herbs. How many products
Great.
have 13 detoxifying herbs in it? None.
Great.
Ours is the only one.
Great. Okay, Carolyn, back to you. Unmute, Carolyn.
Yes. The next one is a gentleman, 62 years old, 175. He called me this week with depression, prostate issues, has some melanoma, and also is challenged with addictions.
Okay, well, melanoma, of course, a malignant cancer. I say, so when people have addictions, that's because they had pica, because they were deficient in certain nutrients, and they were craving things, and they got into something that's addictive. Okay, and you can get all kinds of liver problems and brain problems and tissue problems all over the place when you're addicted to alcohol and drugs of all kinds. But if every time you crave your drug or your alcohol, take a shot of that Herbal Rainforest, and within a couple of weeks, you won't be addicted to it anymore. It's a lot cheaper to use the Herbal Rainforest than it is to, drink all this alcohol and have a car wreck and all this other kind of stuff. Same thing with, they're legalizing marijuana now. Oh my gosh, because they're going to give it to their grandkids and kids and so forth. They're going to get them all addicted.
Wait. So you don't believe in legalizing marijuana, right?
No, it's an addictive drug.
Yeah, it's an escape, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, they're looking for something because they're craving things. Now, if they eat carrots, they can eat carrots all day. They're not going to get addicted to them. Okay, but if they hit marijuana, somebody says, you're craving something. Here, try this. And that's what dealers do. They'll give you the first month free, right? They get you addicted to it because it's an addictive thing. Same with alcohol. Well, I started drinking alcohol and wine because it made me feel good. Then I got addicted to it. Now I got fatty liver and liver cirrhosis. Well, your liver will recover from fatty liver and liver cirrhosis. Your liver, I've had people with only 10% liver function and 90 days are perfectly 100%. But you've got to get rid of the bad stuff. So that means every time you crave the alcohol, every time you crave the marijuana, every time you crave the opioid, you got to take the Herbal Rainforest. Don't forget to take your 90 every day, twice a day, based on your body weight, and your addiction will go away. Now, if you don't mind being addicted, so you can kill yourself or somebody else, or have a lousy life, and could cost you a lot of money and time, you'll lose 25 years of your life. But if you want to add 25 to 50 healthy years of your life and have a good time and be part of the community, then get rid of the addictive stuff and do my little plan. It always works. Great.
Thanks, Doc. Okay, Carolyn, anything else?
This young lady is 58, 160, hypothyroid, has had both knees replaced, says she has a metabolism problem, no other details.
Okay, metabolism problem. Okay, whatever that means. Okay.
Well, the knees being replaced, isn't that like a bone issue then?
Well, yeah, sure. She's got osteoarthritis, and the doctor had kids in college and they needed tuition, so he put 2 knees in her instead of just giving her the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. Okay, so here we go. 160 pounds. I wanted to get rid of all the bad foods, no fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no gluten, no wheat bran, no sugar. Then I want her to take 2 Healthy Brain and Heart Packs, okay, full dose twice a day. Because she's got a thyroid issue, I want her to have 3 of our Ocean's Gold twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. I want her to have 3 of our Fucoid Z capsules twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. I also want her to, let's see here. She also got to get rid of the cruciferous vegetables too. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and kale, because they also interfere with thyroid function. And because she's had 2 knees replaced, I also want her to have vitamin D3, 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month to help her absorb more minerals and things so she can put them in the bones so she doesn't have any other joints replaced. All right. I always, Andy Young from the Civil Rights Movement, mayor of Atlanta, great guy. He was scheduled to have both his knees replaced. And I rebuilt his knees in 2 weeks, and he introduced me to the Black community in America and the world after I rebuilt his knees. He was mayor of Atlanta, and the doctor said, there's nothing we can do for him. And he was scheduled to get a double knee replacement. In 2 weeks' time, I rebuilt his knees. And that's how I got introduced to the Black community in a serious way, because when Andy Young says, hey, try this guy's stuff because he rebuilt my knees. So they listened to Andy Young. They didn't listen to me. They listened to Andy Young. But after a while, all this stuff getting published and Creflo Dollar publishing the book and the CD, Black Gene Lies, suddenly now I'm an honorary African-American.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I'm very honored.
I would be too. And the next one is a 63-year-old gentleman, 165 pounds. He called me with 40 years of seizures. No other description about the seizures, just seizures. He has both trouble falling and staying asleep. And that's it.
Okay, well, we only got time for one more, so he's the one more. Okay, so you need to get rid of all the bad foods, no fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no gluten, no wheat, brown rice, no sugar. Then I want him, because he's 165 pounds, to take 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, full dose of everything twice a day. I want him also to take 2 bottles a month of the MSM, so he can take 3 with each meal. That's in case he has osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing all his nerves and spinal cord and everything. I also want him to have our de-stress capsule. He can take 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. He can take our Ultimate Niacin Plus, one of those twice a day. That's 1 bottle a month. I want him to take the Synaptive. That'll be 2 bottles a month. That's 3 twice a day, so the brain cells can talk to each other. I also want him to have our Ultimate Daily Classic tablets, 3 twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. It'll increase the blood supply to the brain. And I also want him to have the Fucoid Z. He can take the Fucoid Z capsules, take 3 of those twice a day, gives him all these weird trace minerals from the seaweed and algae. And it wouldn't hurt for him to have 3 eggs twice a day and no statin drugs. No statin drugs. 75% of your brain weight is cholesterol. And Alzheimer's disease was actually created by doctors. It did not occur until they came out with statin drugs to lower your cholesterol, because they thought incorrectly, that cholesterol clogs your arteries. No, it's fried foods and salad dressings and oils and stuff like that clog your arteries, not animal fat and not cholesterol. Also, 95% of the weight of testosterone is cholesterol. 95% of the weight of estrogen is cholesterol. So if you're going through menopause at age 25, can't get pregnant, get off your statin drugs and start eating eggs. If you're 25 to 85, you have ED, erectile dysfunction. You want to eat those 3 eggs twice a day. But I would throw in also our Xerafem for girls, 3 of those twice a day, 2 bottles a month, and Xerotest for guys, 3 of those twice a day, and all the functions will come back.
Well, thank you, Doc. Oh, go ahead, Carolyn. You have another question?
My comment was, when people are taking red yeast rice, isn't that the precursor for statins?
Okay, well, here's the deal. Yeast is okay, rice is okay, but when they take it and put it through all kinds of chemical reactions, is sand dangerous because it's used to make mortar between bricks? No. Okay, so the raw material in itself is not bad in that case, but wheat, bran, around oats is. Okay.
Right. Well, Doc, we're going to have more questions for you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And anything else, Carolyn? You have any other comments there?
Thank you. Excellent work, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just end with saying we're looking for help. We're growing like crazy. We're looking for help because there's so many millions of people out of work. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their houses because they've gone through their savings. And so please, please, please contact the number that they're giving you here.
Right.
And we're looking for help. If you sign up with them, you obviously you get your products for wholesale. If you get an auto ship, I pay the shipping, And if you become an associate, which is one of our distributors, costs you $50. $50, it's tax deductible. And you get thousands of dollars a month worth of tax deductions. Thousands of dollars worth a month of tax deductions. If you run it out of your home, you don't need a store, you don't need employees. And I will give you, if you sign up as an associate and pay your $50 and all that kind of stuff, I will give you free $500 worth of sales materials and information and a free website. How's that?
That is great, Doc. Thank you for all the hard work. We're going to be back with you in 2 weeks. If you want any information, call 888-275-7755, Youngevity and New Realities. This is Alan Steinfeld, along with Carolyn Clancy, talking to Doc Wallach.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Carolyn.
Oh, see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Doc.
Bye-bye.
Have a great, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks, Carolyn.